Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. It's good to be here. And to steal a phrase from Rolling Stone's Keith Richards, it's good to be anywhere. Been a long time. Not here. We're in a real room. Doors, windows, desks, tables. So let's do a little around the room and see who has joined us today. Maybe briefly let us know who you are and what you do here at Triton. Why don't we start right here with Tom?
So I'm Tom. I'm in the science department and I teach anatomy and physiology.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Over here to
the horticulture department. Horticulture plants.
horticulture.
It's
Plants.
I said we talked about. Yeah, I teach quite a few things. The value of plants to society, basically, and about the diseases on plants, insects on plants.
Okay.
And I've been here for about 7-8 years.
All right. Thank you, Catch. And now to the esteemed group at that table back there. How about one at a time? Introduce yourselves. Yes.
Angela, Education Department.
Gretchen, Business Department. Justina, Business Department, Teaching Accounting.
All right. And speaking of accounting, that's what I do here too. I am a faculty in accounting here in the Triton School of Business. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming today, and I know Yelena is with us online as well. So thank you for being here also. We want to respect your time. We'll try to keep things to about half hour or so today. But I know it's not everybody's favorite topic. It's about cheating. But yeah, it does happen. And so what we're going to try to do today is talk about it, discuss it, and maybe, just maybe come up with some ways to detect that it's going on and to maybe prevent it from continuing to go on once it is detected. All right, here we go. Cheating is nothing new at all. It has been going on for, I would suggest, millions of years. Yes, that beautiful cave art there was clearly stolen right from that other cave down on the other side of the mountain there. Yeah, imitation is the sincerest form, they say. So yeah, this is nothing new at all. It's been going on. And then moving into the classroom, it's been going on there for years and years as well. Some of the most traditional ways of in-classroom cheating, of course, looking over at your neighbor, and of course, before body art really became fashionable, there was still a lot of that going on in terms of trying to help with in-class tests and exams. And in fact, it's been going on so often that it's actually been the theme or even the entire subject for films and movies once in a while. Lots of films from the 70s, 80s, 90s has to do with some sort of classroom or school cheating. And even this line from one of my favorite movies, Annie Hall, kind of took a deeper look at cheating in the classroom. So yeah, it's been happening. It's been going on for a while. We all know it. So the question is, has anything really changed there? Well, yeah. The digital age is with us. And in the digital age, cheating took on a whole different dynamic because here we are perhaps taking a test or an exam online and looking at yet another device to help us at the same time. This one over here, this looks like it's from my phone from 20 years ago or so, and with the graphics on there. But yeah, it was even going on there as well. And yeah, here we are, multiple screens, books, notes, yet taking a test or an exam or completing an assignment online. So nothing new there. Now all we've had added to the mix is COVID. In the world of COVID, that's taken even cheating perhaps to an even deeper level. I got to always throw in a baseball reference, and I am a White Sox fan, and I was reminded that there is a White Sox pitcher who will remain nameless, at least among us here, who during the off season, before this current season started, it was a news article that he had completed his college education and successfully graduated. from college. And when they asked him how were you able to do that, he said, well, to be honest, a lot of it had to do with COVID, and they moved a lot of the classes and a lot of the tests and exams to online, and surprise, surprise, that helped him get his college education completed. So, yeah, it's things have been going on more and more from the digital age, now to COVID, more shifting to online. Why do students cheat? And I'm not suggesting all do. Many do not. But some cheat. They don't always plan on cheating from day one of school, but things happen along the way. You know, there's a human nature involved, and school is a lot of work, and a lot of us, including the students, are busy and have a lot of things going on. And so human nature says, path of least resistance is going to be the way to go sometimes. If we could find some shortcuts, let's take them. Sometimes those shortcuts involve cheating. And then there's panic. Anyone here, and I just had a couple of these today, this is always the time of year when it happens. You get those emails about the stories, the backstories that the students are having, why they've fallen behind, why they haven't completed assignments, why they missed an online test altogether. And we hear all sorts of stories. It's work and it's family. And I had one, there was an injustice from the city of Chicago. And I was like, I live in the city of Chicago. I see injustice there every day. I'm not sure how that applies here, but all sorts of excuses. And they're panicky. And they always end with, but I really want to pass this class. Well, of course you do. But you're falling pretty far behind right now. It's going to take a lot of digging out. And that sometimes is when, all right, how can I get out of this? How can I take that shortcut to passing the class? And combined with the panic, well, there's the motive. The motive is, I want to pass this class. I need to pass this class. I'm planning on transferring to my four-year school in the spring, and I need to pass. So you got motive there. You combine that with opportunity, well, maybe they tried. There was one little old assignment, and yeah, they went online and just kind of copy and pasted it, and I got away with it. Well, maybe I can get away with that on the bigger assignment, and it just kind of snowballs into more and more cheating because they found that I can get away with this. There's the opportunity. Now, can they still sleep at night when they cheat? Maybe they can. If they're able to rationalize why they did it, and the means justify the end, and it's like, well, that teacher doesn't like me, so it's only reasonable that I cut a few corners here and there, or I'm entitled to it. I've had some at graduate school who claimed, you know, I paid a lot for tuition, so I should be able to do whatever it takes to pass this course. I mean, the rationalization sometimes falls beyond logical, but that's sort of the way the thinking is on that sometimes. So it's there. Some, not all students cheat. These are some of the reasons behind that. So what do we do about this? Well, let's get a visit from Captain Obvious here to talk about the Inclass. The Inclass test cheating. Again, I'm old school. I'm one of the last, I think, that actually gives in-class tests. Here you go, piece of paper, fill it in, show what you know. And so how do you prevent that looking at the neighbor kind of stuff? We have some very crowded classrooms again this fall. Well, I've tried this, it works, the alternate tests and exams. All right, you get the white copy, you get the yellow copy, you get the, it's interesting to see the look on their faces when I first hand those out. It's sort of a look at the feet right there. Oh man, I guess we're not working together on that. Yeah, does it take a little more work? Of course, because you pretty much have to create two different tests there. Certainly walk around. Frankly have seen instructors that are just sitting at their desks, scrolling through their phone during an entire test. Now you come up with a reason to walk around. I always find a crumpled sheet of paper headed to the garbage can tends to help. And then I know many of us are fans of the Scantron test, the fully all Scantron questions, and that's understandable. We can grade a whole class worth of tests in about 40 seconds that way, but I would highly recommend don't make it all about Scantron. Actually include at least a portion of it where we're asking fill in some answers. Again, I call it the show what you know kind of thing. All right, over to the online world, this online cheating thing. Well, first of all, we might have different definitions of what cheating actually is. If we're giving an online exam, and this also may go with online assignments and projects, we should clearly establish what our expectations are as far as, let's call it, outside resources. Are we okay if you look at Google or Wikipedia or some other outside sources? Maybe we are. Maybe we're fine with that. But if not, we should also make that clear. However, let's face it, on an online test or an exam or a project, to say without proctoring, which we'll talk about a little bit, without proctoring, you are not to use any outside resources, no internet searches, no book, no notes. That just absolutely is not realistic. So let's not even go there. The expectations that we set and communicate do have to be realistic. So make sure you have that defined and those definitions are realistic going forward. All right, things just sometimes seem suspicious, especially in these online and sometimes these hybrid classes. Things just seem a little bit off. If you've ever had a student that somehow on their assignments, and especially if we're using assignments that are pretty much created by the authors of our textbook online, and they're just flying through those assignments, getting perfect scores on them, yet on those discussion question posts, you're way off here. This is not even close to the content that we were looking for you to post a discussion question on. That should set our suspicion that something is a little bit off here, especially on those online assignments. So if something looks suspicious, most likely there's a reason why it's suspicious. So got to sort of be on guard for that. So the inconsistencies between those discussion questions and the tests and or assignments that we've given them online. Words, phrases, and other content on the discussion question, you know, they kind of talk one way, they kind of talk the way they're talking, or even talk the way they're texting. But if you see an assignment or a project that uses language like, I've never heard the student use that kind of language before, there's a good chance that they've borrowed some of those sentences from some other outside source. So, and then there's the student who submits something that looks exactly like what another student sent, with the same expressions that don't really sound like that student, at least as far as I know that student as well. So sometimes you see that same thing and something seems a little bit off there. Again, set your definitions. If you said this is a group project and you could all work together on it, then no harm, no foul there. But if you had made it an individual assignment and you see things looking alike, that has to be addressed. I would also suggest for those that do projects, and I do projects for my online class, update them every semester. Doesn't have to be a complete gut rehab, but certainly make enough changes to it so the students from the previous semester don't have access to it. And this also falls in the category of nothing new here. I remember when I was going for my MBA, there was some projects that were just floating around, even pre-internet, but students would have access to them because it was the same old project every term, year after year. So update them. In accounting, at least update the numbers, update the percentages that we're using for discount rates and things like that. So the students don't have the same numbers, because when they do, I've seen a suspicious amount of projects that look real similar to the projects from the previous term. All right, I think I've kind of touched on this already, but beware of those publisher test banks. We like using them. Saves a lot of time in terms of trying to create all new questions. And the publisher seems to know, they're the ones that have published the content. They're the ones who would seem to know how to test on that same content that they published. But these publisher test banks tend to make their way onto the internet quite easily, with students having access to those. And the publishers know this. I've talked to some of them, and they pretty much just throw their hands up. It's amazing. Even as a new edition of the book comes out and we change all of these, the students get them pretty quickly anyway. So be careful on those as well. Example. This was one of the publisher test bank questions. Test bank multiple choice question 2-36. Dearden Corporation uses job order costing system, all right, and on and on. So all one has to do is Google, Dearden Corporation uses job order costing, and there it is, popping right up on the screen, along with the correct answer in the green arrow there. This actually happens. Frankly, I discovered this a few years ago when I was taking a course at DePaul, and our professor there gave us a midterm with questions that you can easily find on the internet. I happened to get them right anyway, but I was able to verify on the internet. So yeah, a lot of these are out there. So beware of that. In fact, here's sort of the Google entry itself. Dearden, now it's Dearden, close enough. You know, Google has a little leeway there. Use a job order costing system, and yeah, that's where we got it from. Various sources that'll give you that question and answer. In fact, there's a site called Accounting Questions and Answers right there. All right, and over in the world of financial accounting, similar, a rather long problem that involved completing an accounting cycle. This one may have actually taken several hours if a student was truly starting it from scratch, or why not just Google the 15th edition of the book? It was problem 4-5A, and all your answers are popped right on there. And this was an example of one of those suspicion meter things. When students were sailing through this assignment, but then on an in-class exam, kind of crashing and burning on a very similar type of question, something obviously was off there. All right, so what do we do? Besides a couple of clues I may have given already. Well, consider any available online plagiarism and or proctoring tools. I know as far as papers go, with Blackboard, we've got Safe Assign. That is generally a very useful piece of software. It'll flag the things that look similar to other type of items that are within that system. It's often actually very, very telling, and I've used systems like that as well in the past, and has all the bells and whistles. The similarity stuff pops up in red, and as an instructor, we can then act on that. As far as proctoring tools go, now, it depends. We all might have different feelings about proctoring, online proctoring, especially if it involves invading ourselves into people's homes. Personally, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that, and it's actually not even me necessarily doing the proctoring. It's somebody working for that organization doing the proctoring. But it has been tried. It's out there. I tried one called Examiny. I tried that a couple of times. Both times it was unsuccessful. One had to do with a password issue, and one had to do with, well, we never did find out why it was unsuccessful. But in the meantime, we have another one from the folks at McGraw-Hill, where in accounting we use a lot of McGraw-Hill textbooks and material. They have something called Proctorio. I admit I haven't tried this yet, but maybe one of these days. The Proctorio manual is a mere 41 pages of content to get through. If you can get through 41 pages of how to do Proctorio on McGraw-Hill, well, maybe you'll be on our way. So far, I've not been able to find the time for 41 pages, but here is a couple of the early pages. This is their user guide, Now, there is one other little red flag on this one. That is a $15 fee to our students, which, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to proctor you taking the test at home, and we're going to want $15 from you for doing that as well. So students might feel a little put off by that.
Jeff, I
Yeah.
use it, and I use it, I first started using it, and you can do free things on it, and had them videotape it, so they would videotape my students. And so I can see my students taking the test, and then it has a suspicion scale. Every single student can cheat. Like, so I was like, okay, well, that doesn't work. And then, so now all I do is I block them from being able to cut and paste and for going to other websites, but they're all cheating. I mean, they're all cheating. I've given up.
Well, don't give up.
All right,
I mean, there's other things we could do.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, what we're hearing is there are limitations, certainly to Proctorio, and there's really only so much you could do. And I did hear that story. Everyone's suspicious. Well, I could have told you that already. Round up the usual suspects, and it is everybody. But yeah, I think it's still there still needs to be a little more development in that as well. But I do agree with you. The other screenshot I've got does have to do with, here's Captain Obvious getting represented again here. Talk to your students early and often about proctoring. Well, we've got a lot of other stuff to already be talking to them about, of course, but and then you're asking them to get orientation themselves. We have enough of a challenge getting them to know our material, but I don't want to be anti-proctoring software and anti-Proctorio because, I've heard that there has been some success stories on this, but I think there's still a workaround for those that have tried it and have not found it to be quite as fulfilling as we might have hoped. So let's talk about, and another screenshot as well, and you get the idea. What if we don't use proctoring? What can we do on exams? Exams are pretty important. A lot of us are using that as part of our assessment tools and turning them into our assessment plans and assessment reports. So, kind of as mentioned before, can we limit the use of publisher test bank questions? And instead, come up with some other testing methodologies. Scrambling the questions, that's a relatively easy and available fix on, at least on Blackboard anyway, or on Connect. Scramble the questions, just one button to click on that one. Algorithmic, many of the questions are available, at least in accounting, where you have different numbers randomly assigned to different students. So different students will look for different correct answers. What I found though is that the internet has them all. They have all the versions of the algorithmic questions. If there's 5 or 6 different ones, yeah, just enter the numbers on there and you'll find the particular one. A mitigating factor though is if you set time limits on multiple choice tests. And I've asked around and we've had some discussions on this. Generally, should be 1 or 2 minutes per question, maximum. Those questions generally are at the most, might have to crunch out a couple of numbers on a calculator, but if you know the content, you should be able to find the answer. Maybe on an internet search, not so much, but the prepared student should be able to get these questions within 1 or 2 minutes a piece. So definitely set some time limits. And this is what I do a lot but I happen to like writing multiple choice questions. I'm highly trained on that from the folks at the AICPA. But yeah, include some of your own, mix up some of your own questions. You could do that on, at least on Blackboard and on Connect. It just says, add your question here. They call it a STEM. That's the sentence of a test. And the key is the right answer, and the distractors are the wrong answers. So I even find it fun sometimes to create, because a truly well-created question is where you'll have students answering all 4. Some will answer A, some will answer B, some will answer C, and some will answer D. Well, they all look good to at least the unprepared students. So that's what I do. So I got data, because we can't have a presentation that doesn't include some data, can we? So here we go. On a recent exam that I gave and this is on the multiple choice questions through the Blackboard Connect platform, but including some of my own questions. 16% of the publisher questions were answered incorrectly, and 40% of mine were answered incorrectly. Mine, of course, were ones you couldn't find on the internet because I just had created them about 2 or 3 days earlier, and I promise mine were no more challenging than the publisher questions, yet they were different. So I thought that was kind of telling as well. So, and I promise, I included a lot from my own content that was part of that online class. So those are a couple things we could do if not doing proctoring. And then when it comes to both tests and assignments, this is something I kind of tried about a year or two ago with a great amount of success in terms of what I thought cut down on some cheating. Individualized questions. Yeah, there's a question about a discount rate, so questions about things in the world of accounting, such as internal rate of return or net present value, simple rate of return perhaps. And they all had different discount rates, and for that matter, different investments of which to choose. So the answers would be different. The correct answers would be different for all of the students. So that certainly would have made, here, I'm going to copy and paste my answers over to you. Just use those. That would not have worked out. And the same thing happens. It could have been on an assignment, project, or a test. But yeah, individualizing the questions, or hard word to say, individualizing the assignments. Does it take longer to grade? Of course it does. But I still think it's worth it. Especially we are using these things for assessment. So I found it to be pretty useful. All right, almost ready to wrap things up, but have a little story to tell. I call this the tale of two brothers. Look at these guys. Aren't they cute? Well, I had these guys in my class over the summer. Not these guys, probably several years later, but they had the same last name, and it was an unusual name. And you know, one was something like Jake, and one was Joe, or no doubt these guys were brothers, and probably twin brothers. So here's what was going on with these cute twins here in my summer class, online class. Starting with the assignments. They would start and complete those assignments virtually within minutes, sometimes seconds of each other, and get the same score on those assignments. Discussion questions, some very similar posts, even though I was trying to give them somewhat different versions of the questions. Then came the test. The multiple choice part of the test, I generally would have a multiple choice part, and then you send in this part of your test. Started and stopped the multiple choice test right at about the same time, despite algorithmic and scrambled. They got virtually the same scores, in fact, exactly the same scores. I took a detailed look, the same right answers, the same wrong answers, and the answers that were wrong, they both answered the same wrong answer on there. This just kept happening. I sent them an email. My first email on these kind of things are usually the nice, perhaps you're working a little too closely together. I'd like to see more individual effort, kind of that kind of phrasing on that one. And it's funny, on those emails, on this one, I got the response that emphatically denied that they were working together on this. And I find that to be about, it's a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 when I send these kind of emails. 1/3 will flatly deny it. 1/3 will admit it and beg for forgiveness. And 1/3 ignore the email altogether, like it's going to go away. And that's been pretty consistent term after term. So anyway, this just kept going on. And what I couldn't figure out, clearly they were working together, but what I suspected was one was carrying the other through the class. One knew what he was doing, and the other was coming along for the free ride. What I couldn't figure out was who is the one that's carrying the other. So what I did is final exam came along, and for those who know me, I do a pretty high stakes final exam. I gave them completely separate final exams. I made two completely different ones, divided up the class, this random. Some of you had this one, some of you had that one. And of course, one of them had exam number 1 and one of them had exam number 2. Well, one of them did very well on the final exam and sailed right through it, and the other one crashed and burned and did not do well at all. And I had my answer. It was pretty clear. Case closed, Your Honor, who was carrying who. So, and I never got an email from either one of them after I posted grades, one of which was a good grade and one of which not so good. So that's what happened. And interestingly, they were both going to the same Big Ten university too. I almost wanted to email the university and say, watch out for these guys. I'll bet they're taking all the same classes together. So anyway, true story. Cost a few lost nights sleep this summer trying to figure out what was going on. All right, so anyway.
Were they the twins? Are they our twins? Like,
They weren't. We had those. We had those a couple of years ago, Tricia. No, they were different. They were a different set of twins.
Same.
Oh yeah.
Same.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think there's something in the water in this district that we do have some twins around here. So anyway, let's get to the end game here, just sort of to wrap it up here. You know, we are sending students who successfully complete our courses out into either a 4-year university or even out into the business world, at least us that have business students or whatever academic pursuits they have. And the people who end up either hiring them or are customers of them, if they are entrepreneurs, they are expecting that if they've got a certificate or a degree, that they know what they should be knowing to have earned this certificate or this degree. And the trouble is that they've cheated their way through that. Not only are they looking bad, we are looking bad. There's a little bit more skepticism about college in general now, and I think a lot of that comes from the outside world who sees some entry-level employees that don't seem to have learned what they were supposed to have learned. And a lot of times that could come back to us. So I think we owe it to ourselves and our community and our students to try everything we can to minimize the cheating and some of that other stuff that goes on. And with that, questions, answers, comments, feelings, thoughts?
It was so good, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Yes.
If actually, first of all, there's a school of thought that's going around that there should not be exams. There should be only assignments. And some of the schools, the school where I teach, so that's where Columbia did it. Don't go for exams. Go give them assignments. Write 4 or 5 papers during the time of the semester. To include all those things. And another thing that what I do is that I do not rely only on the steps. I get my score, total grades are distributed. For example, 15 points or 20 points for the quizzes. And I ask them to do a final project, and then a field trip, and then about 2 written papers. So that's where they are assimilating them. So I think, that, of course, the quizzes and things like that you can cheat, but when you're writing a paper, you can easily make out, there's a copy and paste from one person to another person.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. And whether it's an exam or it's a paper or it's a project, there's cheating. That all of these steps really we need to apply on this one. Yes, I understand that there is kind of a groundswell of support for no more exams because there's too much pressure in exams. And that might work maybe for certain types of curriculum and specialties. But, just speaking from accounting, in the profession of accounting, there is this ultimate exam called the CPA exam, which essentially is telling the outside world that you are qualified to be a licensed, certified public accountant. As for doctors, I don't know. I certainly would hope my doctor has passed an exam or two along the way as well. So But again, I think it kind of depends on the type of curriculum. But yeah, I certainly think there should be a balanced approach in terms of a variety of assessment tools, they're called, to assess whether the student has done the proper amount of learning.
I think you might have a question on.
Yes.
Oh,
I can read it to you.
please do.
Yelena says, imagine nursing students not knowing what they need to know.
Yeah, well, Yelena, if you're out there, I agree with you. And I think about any time anyone's had to go to the emergency room and you go in there and the doctor comes and asks you what's going on, and then they enter whatever you just said into their desktop there. Well, let's see what might be wrong with you. You're like, you don't know? So yeah, I think there needs to be some sort of level of knowledge or some learning outcomes that have taken place there. So thank you for that. All right, well, with that, I guess we'll make it official, and kept you a little bit of overtime today. So thank you, everybody, for coming in, and I appreciate this opportunity.